Dankeschön, Ed. Dankeschön. Everybody ready? Yeah, hi and welcome to our press meeting with the CEO of EuroLeague Basketball, Mr. Jordi Bertomeu, and the CEO of ALBA Berlin, Mr. Marco Baldi. Mr. Bertomeu, it's great to have you in Berlin. Thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure.
We would like to start with an opening statement by you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're happy to be in this country, in this city. Many good things happen for us in Germany, especially this year. And I think that we try to enjoy this very special year for us, having two teams in the EuroLeague. Two teams that for us are very important because represents the concept of the clubs that we love in terms of good management, in terms of very professional approach to how we believe a professional competition has to be run. So we identify our values in the values of our teams here in Germany, both Bayern Munich and ALBA Berlin. So we are very happy and very proud to have those teams with us, but we also have good news in our EuroCup with Oldenburg doing a very good job qualifying for the next phase of the EuroCup. And also because it's a very important year for us, we are back to Germany for our Final Four, to Cologne. We are very excited about this opportunity. It's the first time we have the opportunity to be in Cologne. We had two opportunities in this amazing arena, but never in Cologne. And the fact that in only 11 days, all the tickets has been sold out, I think that represents how much our fans love this event. And it's special, is relevant and significant the fact that the majority, or at least I think the country where we have been sold more tickets is Germany, with I think it's 22% of the tickets has been sold in the country. So I think it's also good news for us. So being here in Germany, it's an amazing place for us because we only can talk about good things. Just to finish, I think that the competition with the first season with 18 teams is confirming that the system that was implemented 4 years ago is working very well. Something that will stay in the future is a concept that allows us to have these games with all the teams meet the other teams. We can build rivalries, and we have the opportunity that our fans to enjoy with all of our EuroLeague teams. So I believe that the fact that we increase the number of teams to this 18 group of clubs has been a very good decision. And I believe that once again we will have, it probably is too early now with only 10 game days. I think it's the 10 or the 11 today? The 11? This is the 11? This is the 12? Thank you. So still 11, it's too early to make assessments, but so far I think we can say we are happy because all the numbers, all the metrics tell us that we have increased in attendance, we have increased in audience, we're signing new and better TV deals. So all the metrics that we have when we are making an assessment about how the competition goes are positive. So again, sorry for my voice. I am trying to do my best. But anything you want to ask, I will be more than happy to answer you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertomeu, and Mr. Baldi are now ready to take your questions. Da vorne bei Dietmar.
Mr. Bertomeu, I've read that you want to have 16 A-licensed teams. Of course, in Berlin, we are interested how are the chances of Alba Berlin to be one of these 16 teams?
Indeed, we have this vision. We believe that to complete the design of the league needs to have 16 teams in equal conditions. So we believe that if we start with these 11 clubs as owners of the league with this long-term license, this group has been increased to 2 more clubs at least for a transitory period, like Bayern Munich and as well Villeurbanne. And we want to complete with 3 more clubs with the same conditions in the next future. There is no secret that Germany has been for us a very important market. I just explained how good we are doing here in Germany. So as a natural consequence of this, ALBA is in the top of our candidates. To make it happen, need still some work, need that the clubs, the EuroLeague clubs, establish the calendar for this process, and also need that some commitment from both sides. But I am confident that based on our view of the club, based on our long relationship with ALBA, we will manage to have good news for the future. Future that you cannot expect to be very, very short-term future. So it's not going to happen next year. I just want to be clear and to avoid misunderstanding. It's not going to happen next year. But we are working on that, and clearly I cannot deny it, because it's public, that we will love to have ALBA in this group in the future.
Yeah.
Just a technicality. How does that work? Does a club who gains an A license have to pay money for that, a down payment?
Well, it's still, when I said it's something that we need sometimes, because we have to work internally to establish the mechanism and the procedures for making it happen. There are many. One of them is also to make the assessment of the value of the EuroLeague license. We are working with some external consultancy company. It's an internal work, and we have to reach a consensus with the clubs. At the end, what we are trying to identify is something that we have never done, is to understand which is the value of one EuroLeague club. We have no tradition on tradings on EuroLeague teams, but I believe in the future probably we will see things like that happen, probably in the long term. But the first step is to have a fair and right assessment of the value of our clubs based on the technical structures, technical criteria that help us to define the value of a company, as happened with other companies in other business. But this is a process where we are. As I said, we internally have still some homework to do.
Hier vorne war eine Frage.
Hello.
Mr. Bertomeu, Coach Aito complains about playing too many games in a few days, about the schedule being so tight. So what is the solution? Playing less games in the EuroLeague or playing less games in the National League? What is your opinion?
Well, I will find a solution, but first I have to consider as a problem. If you ask the players, probably they will have a different opinion. Players love games, and they don't like practices very much. And coaches, and some coaches are in the opposite, thinking in a different way. And we have to respect all the opinions, and basically opinions that come from someone like Aito, with a coach, one of the more reputed coaches we have in Europe. Calendar has been an issue for years, and will be always an issue, so we cannot deny this. The growth of the EuroLeague probably has caused some problems in terms of calendar for the domestic league. We cannot deny this. But at the end, we are talking about games with an average attendance close to 10,000 spectators. So I am not very much in favor to reduce this kind of games. I am not sure that basketball will take benefits of reducing games where we have 10,000 spectators average, when there is no other competition that brings these numbers. So I believe that what we have is a calendar that I cannot deny it's a busy calendar, but when we talk about professional sports, we have to understand that with the time, things evolve, and then probably the time where we had one game a week is over, and the needs of our clubs, the needs of our fans are different. And we have all of us, managers, coaches, and players, to adapt to the new reality. Because then what we are doing is to grow our business. And we don't have clubs with profits. So the economy of the system tells us that players and coaches are the beneficiaries of this business, which is fair, totally fair. So at the end, we are all partners in this adventure.
Oh. Mr. Bertomeu, you just mentioned that ALBA Berlin has to do some homework before they may receive the A license. Can you give us a hint or even concrete information what you expect from ALBA to do, where to improve?
Well, it's not any particular area that we want them to improve. It's just that because when we enter in a system like the one we have in the EuroLeague, and we enter in this system on a permanent basis, so the club suffer much more pressure from the league than the clubs that are participating 1 year in, 1 year out. So because we are building this process around today around these 11 clubs, in the future around the 16 clubs. So the club structure has to be prepared for that. And I don't think that will be anything that the club cannot afford, because, as I said at the beginning, when we are here in Germany, we enjoy our relationship with the clubs in terms of how the structure, the business oriented, the professionalism of our clubs. So I don't see, I'm not going to enter in details, because honestly, if I mention all of them are absolutely irrelevant, because are small details, but I will say, to make it short, that to be in this group of 16 teams will be very demanding on a daily basis, and we all have to adapt our structure to the new situation. That's all. I think it's more from our side than from the ALBA Berlin side that we have to work, honestly.
Mr. Bertomeu, you have mentioned that 2 Euro Cup teams will go each season into EuroLeague. Is there a more clear view how these teams will go up and down season after season? Is it 2 teams going from EuroLeague into Euro Cup? Is it
Yes.
Is it the teams with A licenses, or are they safe with places in EuroLeague?
Clubs with long-term license are safe because they have long-term license. So we cannot affect them by this system. So, but what we introduce by adding one more team to this promotion relegation system, the possibility that we didn't have before, that the club that performs well in the EuroLeague can stay in the EuroLeague, not at the expenses of one long-term license, at the expenses of the EuroCup runner-up of the same season. So this mechanism gives us the guarantee that the system will not be blocked. So we will also always have team coming from the EuroCup to the EuroLeague. And so I believe that the system is quite simple. And this promotion relegation is a game only within the group of the clubs that come from the EuroCup, or the clubs that will come then the following season from the EuroCup. It's not going to affect the others. I don't know if I make it clear. I make it clear. I'm not sure. See?
Did we get it right that you only want to increase the ratio between A licensed teams and not, but you would like to leave the total number of EuroLeague teams at 18?
I believe so. So in 18, I understand that from the calendar standpoint is a number that make our calendar more busy. But it's a good number because we keep the balance between territory distribution and quality of the teams. Probably we can keep the same balance going further, not much further, probably 20, 22. But when we have this in front of us, we also have to consider the national leagues. So going further than 18 will make impossible to combine national leagues with EuroLeague. It's something that we don't have in our mind in this moment. So 18 will be the number at least in the short midterm, because we believe that going more than 18 will make the participation of our club in the domestic league impossible, and we don't want to do it.
Hinter dir.
Frage für Marco, Deutsch oder Englisch? Was hättest du lieber?
Wie bitte?
Frage für Marco, Deutsch oder Englisch?
Gerne Englisch.
Okay. Marco, what would an A license mean for ALBA, especially financially? Because, you know, I'm a naive guy when it comes to financial stuff. So can you explain to me, compared, for example, to being part of the Euro Cup, what the difference between those two competitions means?
The problem is I'm naive too. It's not so much about which competition you participate. It's more about planning security. So we are a club that is working within the market, on the market. So we depend on our activities, and it's if we can describe where we're going to play, against whom we're going to play, and on which, let's say, we will offer, let's call it the premium product. Of course, this is a big help. It's a huge help. So that's what I think Jordi mentioned before in his words, that there is an advantage for the clubs who know that they next year, the year after, and so on, they're going to participate in this competition. By the way, also on the players' market, this means something. So it means, I cannot say it means 10,000 more or 1 million, but what I can say, it provides planning security, and this is something very valuable.
Hello. Mr. Bertomeu, as you said, ALBA is on the top of candidates to join.
Because Marco was here, I didn't.
Could you mention any other clubs who are in the right direction, moving to join EuroLeague also?
Well, I think EuroLeague has been very clear in the last years that we have some markets that we want to improve our footprint, or to have some footprint, and from one side. On the other side, there are markets that are traditionally basketball markets that we believe that EuroLeague has to have presence there. In the first category, I think we always have mentioned Germany, France, and UK as our strategic markets in our intention to move our sport more north, more to these two big markets, so three big markets. So decisions like the one in Asbel-Willerdamen on Bayern Munich has to be understood in the framework of this vision. So Germany will remain as a priority, because we believe that to have at least two teams in Germany is something that is worth to have. It's important for us. France, again, UK is Probably you believe it's a dream to have a team in a market with no basketball tradition. We are people that likes to take challenge, so we are working in this direction. But also there are markets like Russia or Serbia. What I mean Serbia, meaning the Balkan area, what corresponds to the Adriatic Lake region, that also, sorry, very good territories for basketball that also have to be taken into account. So we are working basically in these two areas for different reasons, each one for the reasons I mentioned.
Mr. Bertomeu, ALBA and as well as Valencia had a difficult start into the season, in the EuroLeague season. Is this something that surprises you, or is the difference between these two competitions still so big?
EuroLeague is very difficult competition. I never played this competition, but I know that it's difficult, it's tough. And we have seen the teams like Fenerbahce that are suffering. Zalgiris are teams that has been playing playoff last couple of years, or even Final Four, are suffering. And if you see the standings, so there are a group of clubs are not a big difference between one and others. So when we have only 11 games played, we're going to play the 12th. I think it's very early to say if we are disappointed with performance one team or another. Valencia started very bad, now it seems that it's getting better. So the calendar is difficult, the calendar is not symmetric, so it's difficult sometimes to compare one team with another if some teams had played 7 games away and only 3 or 4 at home. So I think to make this kind of assessment during the season is difficult, and basically because this competition is very difficult. It's very tough. And we have seen in the last years that in many teams are competing for entering the playoff. Last year, I think, until the very last day, we had 5-6 teams fighting for the playoff spots. So I believe that those teams will perform well. And I don't see big difference between clubs. Probably budget always have an impact on the clubs. But we have seen in our past that not always the richest club is the one who wins the competition. So that's a sport.
Any more questions?
Because nobody else wants to ask a question, but one is on my mind is, how do you face the situation with Olympiacos, who only play EuroLeague and have... It's a complicated story, but basically they have 2 teams. Sometimes people do it in other sports, but how do you face that in EuroLeague? That cannot be the point, right?
Well, you have to take into consideration that what happened in Olympiacos has to do only with the Greek basketball and with the conflict that they have internally in the Greek Federation, with the Greek League, and all these things that probably you know better than I do. So, the only thing as a league we can say is that we cannot be contaminated by the problems that other leagues have. And we will not be contaminated for that. That's why we accept Olympiacos in EuroLeague, because the fact that they decided not to play in the Greek League was a decision that was taken. I am not in favor or against. I have no opinion about that. But it's clear that it was taken as a consequence of conflict they have internally in Greece. And we cannot interfere in this problem, and we cannot be affected by this problem in any way. So they have to evaluate if what they did is the right thing to do, if that will help them to solve the problem in Greece, that will help them to perform better in the EuroLeague. I don't know also what is the impact of this decision on the reputation of the club. There are many elements that have to be taken into consideration, but it's their responsibility, not our responsibility. And the only thing that we have to do is not to suffer in any way for this. Otherwise, the league will lose their own personality. And EuroLeague clearly is a product that everybody identifies, regardless what happened with the domestic leagues. You disagree, so you can keep arguing if you want, no problem. No, I'm not trying to convince you. Okay.
Dietmar?
You were talking about 16 teams with A licenses. Will they all be equal, the A licenses, or are there some with 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
When we talk about clubs with a license, we talk about clubs that are owners of the company. So when clubs are owners of the company, all of them have the same rights.
Will there be the sole owners, or will there be other investors having shares in the company?
No, we never. So we never had the idea to open the company to third-party investors. We have other shareholders that are important stakeholders in basketball, as the domestic leagues. We have 9 national leagues that are also shareholders of the company, but we don't have third parties that are not related to the game itself, as a league or as a team.
In regards of the Olympiacos topic, you mentioned that's not our business. But in general, would you like to encourage the clubs to go in that direction, to play exclusively in the EuroLeague?
No, because as I said, when I talk about the number of the teams, if I want our clubs to leave the domestic leagues, I will propose a league with 24 clubs with 46 game days. So that's as simple as this. And I am not doing this. I am just trying to keep the number that, despite the problems with the calendars that we were talking before, allowed us to our clubs to keep playing in the national leagues. So what happened with Olympiacos, not because it's not our business, all this business is our business, but it's a different thing that when some league has some internal problems that are not sport problems, we have to protect our league and not to be contaminated by this problem. So we had a rule that if a club is not participating in the domestic league, cannot participate in the EuroLeague. But in this case, we approve an exception based on this argument. If Olympiacos had been relegated to the second division as a consequence of the sport results, probably will be a different situation, but that was not the case. So our business is to protect our league, and in this case, protecting our league by not allowing any kind of, again, contamination from something that is working not properly.
All questions answered? Then I would like to thank everybody in attendance. And again, thank you, Mr. Bertomeu, for taking the time.